Merci. Bienvenue à la mission permanente de la France auprès des Nations Unies. Nous sommes très heureux de vous accueillir ce soir pour cet événement traditionnel accueilli par la mission avec le Medicines Patent Pool, la communauté des brevets sur les médicaments. C'est un événement que nous organisons tous les ans. Nous sommes très heureux de le faire à nouveau cette année. Et il est consacré à un sujet extrêmement important, renforcer la résilience avec des approches locales et régionales pour la préparation aux pandémies et la sécurité sanitaire. Nous sommes très honorés ce soir d'avoir de hautes autorités et en particulier le ministre français de la Santé, Monsieur Yannick Noder. Nous entendrons ensuite un panel avec différents ministres, mais sans plus attendre, je donne la parole au ministre, Monsieur Yannick Noder. C'est à vous.
Bonsoir à tous. Très heureux de vous accueillir ce soir dans ce lieu un peu symbolique pour la France ici à Genève. Je voudrais surtout remercier Madame l'ambassadrice, puisque à peine 10 jours depuis votre arrivée, vous avez effectivement organisé avec beaucoup de brio cette Assemblée mondiale de la santé concernant la participation de la France. Je voudrais saluer l'ensemble des ministres qui sont également présents ou qui vont se joindre à nous. Monsieur le ministre de la Santé du Sénégal, Monsieur le ministre de la Santé de l'Afrique du Sud, Monsieur le ministre de la Santé de Tunisie, Monsieur le ministre de la Santé de l'Indonésie, de saluer Madame la ministre Marisol Touraine, présidente d'United, et puis de saluer vous toutes et vous tous, chers partenaires. Donc, vous l'avez compris, je suis très heureux d'être présent ce soir à la mission permanente qui symbolise clairement l'engagement constant de la France pour une diplomatie de la santé fondée sur la solidarité, sur l'innovation et la coopération multilatérale. Ces dernières années nous ont montré, nous ont rappelé parfois durement que dans le domaine de la santé, encore plus qu'ailleurs, les enjeux locaux ont parfois des répercussions mondiales. Répondre rapidement aux crises sanitaires ne dépend pas uniquement de solutions médicales, mais aussi de notre capacité d'embarquer l'écosystème et de produire des solutions, de les adapter, de les partager, de les rendre accessibles, mais surtout aussi de le faire avec les acteurs locaux. Et ça a été particulièrement bien rappelé hier après-midi, notamment lors de la présentation d'United. La France s'engage, vous l'avez compris, clairement pour renforcer les capacités locales et régionales, non seulement à travers le financement ou l'appui technique, mais aussi en soutenant la transmission des savoir-faire, des outils technologiques et des outils de production. C'est une conviction importante pour nous en France de pouvoir effectivement faire partager à tous dans un souci d'équité l'intérêt de l'innovation et de pouvoir avoir une certaine idée que la science doit être effectivement basée aussi sur le facteur humain, un facteur d'émancipation pour les populations au service des populations. Louis Pasteur faisait le choix de diffuser librement le vaccin contre la rage. Il montrait son attachement à l'idée que l'innovation en santé doit d'abord viser à soigner et à protéger le plus grand nombre. Je crois que tout ça, nous l'avons clairement illustré et nous sommes en train de l'illustrer avec le traité sur la pandémie qui marque un nouvel accès sur les sujets internationaux après le traité sur le tabac. Je crois que je voudrais saluer particulièrement le rôle de notre ambassadrice de la santé mondiale, Anne-Claire Amproust, sur ces sujets qui ont permis, au-delà des difficultés internationales, de pouvoir, je l'espère, d'ici quelques heures, conclure ce succès. En tout cas, de rendre hommage à toutes et tous ceux qui travaillent à rendre les technologies accessibles dans des cadres volontaires, souples et intelligents. Je crois que nous pouvons bâtir un socle durable de compétences dont les pays ont besoin, mais dont ils doivent également se saisir. Il ne s'agit pas uniquement de se préparer à une prochaine pandémie, mais il s'agit de construire une autonomie sanitaire pour chacun, capable de répondre aux besoins courants, vaccins, traitements contre les maladies chroniques ou infectieuses, diagnostics adaptés aux contextes locaux naturellement. Cela demande un engagement de toute la chaîne, des chercheurs, des industriels, des régulateurs, des bailleurs et bien sûr des communautés eux-mêmes et des patients eux-mêmes. C'est précisément ce que nous voulons encourager, des modèles souples, équilibrés, qui permettent aux technologies et aux innovations de circuler et aux capacités nationales et régionales de se développer. C'est la confiance entre pays, entre régions, entre partenaires publics et privés qui sera les clés du succès. Basée sur les bénéfices mutuels induits par le partage de savoir-faire, cette confiance est un ciment important de nos collaborations en santé publique. Donc je crois que à ces quelques mois qui nous séparent de la présidence du G7 et particulièrement du G7 en santé, je crois que nous sommes en train de poser différentes briques, que ce soit par le traité des pandémies cet après-midi, par un certain nombre de manifestations internationales que nous aurons l'occasion de couvrir, et puis surtout, je vous donne tous rendez-vous prochainement pour la présidence du G7 où nous aurons effectivement des partenariats renforcés avec beaucoup de pays. Merci à tous.
Merci bien, Monsieur le ministre. Je sais bien que vous avez un vol à prendre, et donc vraiment merci. Et merci à Madame l'ambassadrice, notre hôtesse pour ce soir. C'est vraiment gentil de nous donner la possibilité de le faire ici dans votre jardin. I will now speak in English. My name is Charles Gore, and I'm the Executive Director of the Medicines Patent Pool. And we are delighted to be co-hosting this. So, honourable ministers, distinguished guests, Marisol, I should pick you out as well because Unitaid are set up the Medicines Patent Pool and continue to fund us very generously. Many distinguished guests here. And so we will start with some words from the distinguished ministers here. We've heard from the Minister of Health for France, and now I'd like to introduce, first of all, the Minister of Health from Tunisia, Dr. Fajani, with whom I've just had a very nice conversation. Dr. Fajani, the floor is yours.
Excellences, Messieurs les ministres, Mesdames et Messieurs, distingués collègues, permettez-moi tout d'abord d'exprimer la gratitude de la Tunisie à la République française et aux Medicines Patent Pool pour l'organisation de cette session cruciale, qui place au cœur du débat international une conviction que nous partageons pleinement: l'accès équitable aux technologies de santé soutenues par une production locale et régionale, c'est la pierre angulaire d'une véritable souveraineté sanitaire. La pandémie Covid-19 a constitué une épreuve sans précédent pour nos systèmes de santé. Elle a aussi été un révélateur brutal des inégalités structurelles en matière d'accès aux technologies médicales et de la dépendance excessive des pays à revenus faibles et intermédiaires vis-à-vis des chaînes d'approvisionnement exogènes, fragiles et asymétriques. C'est en réponse à ces défis que la Tunisie a décidé avec détermination d'intégrer le programme mondial de transfert des technologies pour les vaccins à ARN messager. Piloté par l'OMS à travers l'Institut Pasteur de Tunis, la Tunisie a été sélectionnée parmi 6 pays pour la technologie vaccin à ARN messager. L'Institut Pasteur de Tunis est un établissement national emblématique de notre excellence scientifique. C'est illustré depuis des décennies dans la production de vaccins, de sérums thérapeutiques viraux. Mais ce projet dépasse la seule ambition nationale. Il incarne notre vision d'un écosystème régional de production biopharmaceutique robuste, autonome et innovant. Il traduit une volonté collective de l'Afrique du Nord de ne plus rester en marge de l'innovation médicale mondiale. Toutefois, cette ambition nécessite des réponses audacieuses à plusieurs défis structurants. Premier défi, la viabilité économique. La taille du marché tunisien, bien que bien régulée, reste restreinte. Cela impose la mise en place de mécanismes régionaux de mutualisation de la demande et une stratégie de diversification progressive des produits, notamment vers les anticorps monoclonaux, les vaccins thérapeutiques et les thérapies ciblées, puisque la technologie ARN messager permet à la fois de faire les vaccins et toutes ces innovations thérapeutiques. Le deuxième défi, c'est l'accès aux brevets. Les technologies ARN messager sont protégées par de multiples brevets restreignant l'accès libre. Le rôle du Medicines Patent Pool est ici capital. Nous comptons sur son leadership pour obtenir des licences volontaires, transparentes, solidaires et alignées avec les objectifs de santé publique mondiale. Troisième défi, réglementaire. L'Agence tunisienne du médicament est pleinement engagée dans une réforme ambitieuse de son système d'évaluation, d'inspection et de pharmacovigilance. Elle a besoin aujourd'hui d'un accompagnement technique et stratégique pour atteindre les standards d'excellence exigés par la production biologique avancée, et c'est le partenariat avec l'OMS qui pourra faire avancer notre agence. Le défi des compétences humaines, aucun transfert technologique ne peut réussir sans un investissement massif dans la formation, la montée en compétences et l'accompagnement des industriels. Nous plaidons pour la création d'une académie régionale des biotechnologies en partenariat avec l'OMS, les universités européennes, africaines et avec notre diaspora de scientifiques à l'étranger. Mesdames et messieurs, ce que la Tunisie propose, c'est un pacte de confiance, de transparence, de responsabilité partagée. Nous avons besoin de bailleurs de fonds engagés qui voient dans ce projet un investissement dans la résilience future, partenaires industriels audacieux, prêts à s'engager dans des transferts de technologies complets et équitables, institutions multilatérales fortes, garantes d'un cadre de coopération respectueux et orienté vers l'impact, des États partenaires conscients que la sécurité sanitaire globale commence par la solidarité régionale. Le projet tunisien de production de vaccins à ARN messager n'est pas un projet parmi d'autres, il y a un test de notre capacité collective à reconstruire un ordre sanitaire plus juste, plus résilient et plus humain. En investissant dans la science, en renforçant nos capacités locales, en levant les obstacles liés aux brevets et en nous appuyant sur des initiatives telles que le Medicine Patent Pool, nous avons l'opportunité historique de réparer les fractures du passé et de dessiner une architecture sanitaire mondiale fondée sur l'équité et la dignité. La Tunisie est prête et elle appelle à ce que cette vision devienne un engagement collectif. Merci pour votre attention.
Thank you very much, Minister. We ordered a little bit of rain just to make sure that nobody leaves before the end. And now I'd like to invite the Minister of Health of Indonesia, Dr. Budi Sadikin, to please say a few words.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I remember back in 2021 at G20 meeting in Italy, I met with my colleague 20 health ministers. And now, to be honest, I feel very, very old because I am the only health minister left. After Secretary Becerra from United States was, replaced by the famous Robert Kennedy Jr. that I met a few weeks ago. Ladies and gentlemen, during pandemic COVID-19, as a non-healthcare professionals, I came into this job. I see two major problems that Indonesians are facing. The first one is the money. And the second one is how to translate that money into access to emergency medical countermeasures, like diagnostic tools, like vaccine, and like medicine. So Indonesia at that time have some money. So we are not that difficult in terms of money. But to be honest, it's extremely difficult for us to access emergency medical countermeasures. Not only diagnostic tools, but even protective suits, ventilators. And forget about vaccine at that time is extremely difficult, and even so, medicine. So that's why at that time, during the first G20 meeting, our initiative, because Indonesia was the president of G20 after Italy, is to establish a pandemic fund where we can solve the issue of money during crises, like the IMF of the financial world. Now we have to create another IMF for health, a global architecture, which is the pandemic fund. But then we need also something, It's not enough only the money. We need some structure that will guarantee 8 billion people have the same right to access the emergency medical countermeasures. At that time, there was the reason why the pandemic treaty ID was there. So for some of you that also active during pandemic, like me, we know exactly that the pandemic fund and the pandemic treaty are the two major pillars which is needed by the global health architecture, like global finance architecture have IMF and World Bank, that help the world during financial crisis. We need to have something during global health crisis. So that are the two. So the component of the pandemic treaty at that time was the discussion that during pandemic, emergency medical countermeasure will move from private goods become public goods. That is the ideal things. Because you cannot play gods and determine only this country can live, the other country cannot live. But that's easy to say but difficult to execute. That is a patent, that is a private sector, they are for profit, we are not profit. But the concept that every 8 billion people in the world should have the equal right and access to a certain medicine is very, very key. So that's why at that time Indonesia knows MPP. We work with them and we are very surprised that there are so many, keys that can unlock the doors that not many developing countries understand. So that's why, thanks to MPP, I remember we have access to COVID-19 antiviral, HIV, antiretroviral, and also several monoclonal antibodies because MPP. I wish MPP can keep expanding your roles and then to open up or give the keys to another developing countries like Indonesia. So they are much well prepared during the next pandemic. They also have access to this emergency medical countermeasure and save their people's life. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister, and thank you for your very kind words about MPP. I'd now like to ask Deputy Minister of Health of South Africa, Joe Fowler, who we know well, to please come up and say a few words. Joe, thank you.
Thank you very much, Master of Ceremonies. Let me greet and recognize our ambassador, who's our host here. It feels like a long time coming here. This is my third time to participate in this function on the sidelines of the World Health Assembly, and also recognize our host minister, Minister of Health of France. Also feels like we've been together for a whole week. We had together yesterday at a function which was convened by Unitate, and also this morning on another function on antimicrobial resistance. Indeed, we have come a long way, and thank you very much for inviting us also to participate. And of course, my old friend, Minister Budi, Sadikin, Minister of Indonesia. Indeed, we congratulate you being one of the few survivors of various changes of government. He hosted us in 2022 in Bali for the G20, and I hope he will be coming to Johannesburg later this year for the G20, so that we can pay back for your very generous hospitality in 2020. But we've also come a long way, as various speakers have said. Thanks for all the steps which have been taken, the lessons we have learned from the COVID-19 pandemic, the fact that, in fact, the initiatives which have been taken, agreements on and led by the WHO in terms of technology transfer, which we want to thank all the partners who have supported us as South Africa to be mRNA technology transfer hub, but also for the fact that this happened even before the pandemic treaty was initiated and now being a reality. So we expect that going forward, under the auspices of the pandemic treaty, there will be a lot more cooperation, hopefully, because the only value of signing that treaty will only be if we can apply it and make sure that indeed we make sure that the lessons learned from the COVID-19 attend into practical programs. But from our side, we want to say thank you. We've made a lot of progress following the initiation of the agreements on the mRNA technology transfer. We again want to thank all the partners for identifying us as a hub. We want to report back to you to say, indeed, we have made a lot of progress. I have here with me the senior executives from the leading companies in Cape Town and South Africa, Afrigem, which is the main hub, and also BioVac, which is also the partner, and also our South African Medical Research Council. It's actually made a lot of progress. DG Tedros has been there already twice to see the progress. As we speak now, the main hub now have also 14 partners in terms of technology transfer, working now on R&D, further research and development, focusing on local priority diseases. So we have evolved with Afrigem having been able to develop a vaccine and a COVID-19 vaccine. Obviously, as we all know, this was because of the circumstances. By the time when this was achieved, the issue of demand of COVID-19 vaccines was no more. But in terms of, we're very appreciating the fact that the technology has been now established. So using that technology now is to address other local diseases for the purpose, especially those who are prevalent in the low and middle income countries, respiratory viruses, TB, HIV, Mpox, and all of those. So we want to again thank all the partners in that regard. And a lot of training, a lot of, as I said, sharing of this technology with various other countries in the African continent and beyond. So indeed, we want to say that your investment has not been in vain. We're looking forward beyond the pandemic treaty that we will be able, as everybody, all the scientists are telling us that this is not the last pandemic. So we believe that as low and middle income countries, based on this particular innovation and investment, we will be in a better place. Of course, we're also working together in the region, sharing all the technologies, but also looking at medicines procurement, pool procurement. We also say thanks to MPP and Unitate for the various initiatives. From our own region, we have also regional initiatives in terms of pool procurement. We recently, as a country, also signed the African medicines, the AMA, the medicines, the African medicines procurement process, which also makes it possible that as African countries, we can be able to share in procurement under the African Medicines Agency, under the African Union. So also under the guidance of the African Center for Disease Control, we're making sure that these various capabilities are shared within the African region. We are quite conscious of the fact that not every country can produce, all the products, but under the leadership of the AU and the Africa CDC, we also making practical steps to make sure that as a continent and as a region, we can be able to use all the abilities of various centers in different regions, in the eastern region, southern region, in the northern region, in all the regions of the continent. So indeed, we want to say to you, for the partners who have been working with us, that your investment has been put to good use. We looking forward to the finalization of the pandemic treaty, and we're quite confident that going forward, of course, also based also on the proper financing mechanisms, as Minister Budi was saying. You can have the technology, but if you don't have the finance, and as a finance man, he always reminds us that you can have all the plans, but if you don't have the finances, you will not be able to achieve your goals. So thank you very much, and we're looking forward to further exchange of ideas this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister, indeed. And thank you very much to the Minister of Health of France, who has to leave now. And now I'd like to invite Peter McDougall, who is the Canadian ambassador to the UN here in Geneva. Peter, the floor is yours. I know, I got it, thanks.
Bonsoir, Ministre, Excellences, distingués invités. Et merci à l'ambassadrice Jorgensen de nous accueillir pour cet événement important, et merci au ministre pour vos interventions très pertinentes. Le Canada est reconnaissant du leadership de la France à un moment où l'architecture de la santé mondiale subit une transformation historique. But while there are many uncertainties at this time, one thing is very clear to us. Now is the time for countries to stand firm, to support our trusted multilateral partners in advancing access to comprehensive health care to ensure nobody is left behind. This includes access to life-saving vaccines, tests, and treatments. Canada remains committed to strengthening the resilience of health systems by supporting local and regional manufacturing of health products. The COVID-19 pandemic reminded us of the importance of robust vaccine ecosystems and highlighted the need to increase local and regional manufacturing capacity as a critical component of equitable pandemic preparedness. That is why Canada is proud to be one of the top donors to the program co-led by the Medicines Patent Pool and the World Health Organization. The mRNA technology transfer program they co-lead plays a key role in diversifying manufacturing capacity to improve equitable access and enhance pandemic preparedness. Canada has invested $145 million in enhancing the regional vaccine manufacturing value chain, including $45 million to the program to strengthen sustainable and local manufacturing capacities in low and middle income countries. This program is now entering a new phase which focuses on ensuring its sustainability through the development of research and development consortia and in-licensing from other innovators. We support the program and look forward to continuing to support both the MPP and the WHO in launching this next phase. We also look forward to continuing our collaboration with France and other donors and organizations involved in developing local and regional capacity for pandemic preparedness. Thank you. Merci.
Thank you very much indeed, Ambassador, and very nice to hear your commitment to continuing to support this. We're extremely grateful to the support that we've received so far, so thank you. And as well, of course, to our other donors like France and the EU and many others. So this evening is really about local or regional production with a particular focus as a really good case study, I think, on the mRNA program and what we've achieved so far. And so I'd like to invite Dr. Martin Frieder, who's been leading from WHO on the mRNA program, to talk a bit about it. So Martin, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Et d'abord, merci à la France. Merci non seulement pour l'endroit, c'est maintenant la 4e année qu'on est ici, mais aussi merci à la France d'avoir donné d'abord le premier investissement dans ce programme. And thank you also to all of the other donors without whom we would not be here and we would not be able to tell you how far we have come and also how far we still have to go. When we began this program, it was in the middle of the COVID pandemic. And there was a clear and imperative, absolute imperative. The low and middle income countries must have the ability and the autonomy to be able to respond to outbreaks. And when we looked at this and all the technologies that were available, mRNA clearly stood out as being the most applicable, because unlike the other technologies, with mRNA, in theory, we could make any other vaccine and many other things. Well, that was the theory. So where have we got to now? So currently, the technology has been established. The mother is over there, Petro. Thank you, Petro. The technology has been established, and she has given birth to the technology, and this technology is now growing. We estimate that by 2030, which is, as you all know, tomorrow, there will be at least 8 manufacturers that will have fully implemented the technology under GMP. That means they're able to manufacture products that can be administered into people. And at that time, we will have more than 2 billion doses of pandemic response capacity in the low and middle income countries, compared to the 0 that we had during the pandemic. So that is a huge progress. However, and this is an important word, the Canadian representative just mentioned the word sustainability. If we do not provide now these manufacturers with products that they can make and sell, unfortunately the COVID market is a bit dried up. If we don't provide them with products that they can make and sell, they will go under. They will, by the time the next pandemic happens, they will have turned to rust. And we've seen this before, because we did a similar project years ago with the other mother over there, Dr. Keeney, where we transferred pandemic influenza technology. And if the governments were not buying pandemic influenza vaccines, those facilities just dried up. So where are we with providing other products? Now, most of the recipients of the technology are manufacturers. That means they focus on manufacturing, not on research and development. So therefore, they would be waiting and saying, please, sir, can I have some products to make? And that's not going to work given the way that the few companies that are developing these are sharing. So what we've done is we've established consortia around the world, consortia of research institutions, biotech development institutions, to actually do the research and development of products. First of all, vaccines. Where are we with the research and development of vaccines? The most advanced of these is a therapeutic human papillomavirus vaccine. But we've got prophylactic human papillomavirus vaccines. Why do we need therapeutic? Well, in many parts of the world, young women did not receive the prophylactic vaccine. So for the next 20, 30, 40 years, this population is at high risk of developing cervical cancer. We have a vaccine now being developed by our partner in Thailand that appears able to clear chronic infection. And so this, given to these women that did not get the prophylactic vaccine, should protect them from cancer. Another disease is hand, foot, and mouth disease. For those in Europe who will say, but my child had that, that's not dangerous. It's not dangerous here, but in Asia it is dangerous. And we have an Asian partner developing that for sharing with our Asian manufacturers. We also have development for RSV, respiratory syncytial virus, in South Africa. We have development vaccines against leishmaniasis and development of vaccines against Rift Valley fever, gonorrhea, and several others. However, all of these products, and this is true across all vaccines, making vaccines takes a long time. And so what are the manufacturers going to do between now and when those vaccines are available for them to manufacture, get licensed, and start distributing? And the answer to that, fortunately, is therapeutics. RNA is not only applicable to vaccines, it is very applicable to therapeutics. And we have one product, which is the treatment of cancer, which is what we're going to get into details now. It's called ex vivo CAR T-cell preparation. This is working right now. It is working today, and patients with stage 4 cancers that would normally be dead within 2 to 3 weeks are walking out, and a year later are still walking. So we are getting access to this technology. We have partners that are sharing this technology with us, but it's not only for cancer. We have applications now of mRNA to treat autoimmune disorders. We have applications to treat liver diseases. Again, this is a technology we're getting from partners being provided to our network for free. Now, one thing which we should mention is the application to monoclonal antibodies. Now, monoclonal antibodies currently are one of the key cost drivers of any country that is procuring medical products for its population. mRNA, for the moment, can produce low levels of monoclonal antibodies. We believe that as we go forward with the research and development, we will soon be able to use mRNA to treat many of the diseases that are currently treated with the very, very expensive monoclonal antibody products. However, in order for this to become true, this requires, first of all, that the governments of the countries continue investment in these facilities. If the governments step back now, I'm afraid some of these facilities, the owners, the people working there, might say, well, we're not selling anything, so why don't we convert this facility into a garage? So we need continued investment to take them to the point that they have products that they can sell. But also, we need continued support and investment from the donors in research and development. These products are not going to happen by themselves. While our academic partners are being very generous and sharing this with us, we need absolutely donors to continue investment in this area of research. So, to summarize, the potential is there. Mummy gave birth to a beautiful child. The beautiful child, this is now our 4th year, so let's say it's a toddler now. The toddler has huge potential. We know what it can become. But giving birth is insufficient. It needs nurturing. So my plea now to all of you is to help us nurture this and get it from where it is now to be a fully fledged autonomous adult. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Martin. And now I would like to invite our 7 panelists to come up to take a seat here. So please, we have, first of all, well, it's not a particular order, Dr. Abebe Ganetu, who is in charge of local manufacturing for Africa CDC, Jamie Love, Director of KEI, Maria de Lourdes Rivera, who is the Vice President of Global Health and International Relations at Fiocruz, Cécile Biot, who is the Director General of the INTPA, International Partnerships Directorate at the European Commission, Farid Fazua, who is the Global Director for Disruptive Technology Funds and Services at the International Finance Corporation, Bart Janssens, who is the WHO Academy Director for Learning and Innovation, and Priya Basu, who is Executive Head of the Pandemic Preparedness Fund. So, thank you very much indeed, distinguished panel, for joining us. So, I'm going to start with some questions to you one by one. First of all, to you, Abebe. From your particular perspective, what do you see as the most important next steps for ensuring both the long-term success of the mRNA technology transfer program and more generally success around strengthening demand, access, and regional collaboration across the continent of Africa so that it really delivers what we're all trying to do? Abebe.
Thank you very much. Excellencies, colleagues, good afternoon. First of all, I would like to pass information that His Excellency Dr. Kaseya couldn't make it today, and he sends his apologies. So my name is Abebe, I work with Africa CDC. I'm the local manufacturing coordinator. So since 2021 April, we have been asking this question, the question of how can we establish a sustainable vaccine manufacturing ecosystem on the continent. So the answer for us in Africa CDC is one, which is go end-to-end. End-to-end means from research and development innovations through manufacturing to market. So unless we have all the three components, sustainability will be a big issue. Research and development is a first important step, and that's something that takes us to sustainability and independence. But if we limit ourselves at research and development stage, then it will be an academic exercise. So for us to really have a sustainable ecosystem, we have to go end to end. In Africa CDC, in 2022, we developed the framework for action. It's a 20-year strategy supporting vaccine manufacturing on the continent. How? We don't do bricks and mortar, but we support enablers. Enablers on the demand side and enablers on the supply side. So on the supply side, we support technology transfer, access to finance. I see finance colleagues here, and also regulatory, very important enablers that we should be investing on, and workforce development. So we need to support these enablers so that we will have quality, effective products. But then that's not enough, because our recent study indicates that market is a critical factor for success. So if we don't have market for the vaccines, the quality vaccines that we'll be manufacturing on the continent, then that's the end of the line. We won't be able to have sustainability on the continent. So these things have to be fulfilled so that we will have sustainable manufacturing. In Africa CDC, one of the things that we're doing is to support, to convene member states together and consolidate demand for the vaccines and other health products manufactured in Africa. And then we're establishing the African pool procurement mechanism. That will be a mechanism to pool demand and procure products from African manufacturers mainly for Africa. That will really create the market that's necessary to really have sustainable manufacturing. In terms of workforce development, unless the workforce, we have the workforce in place, then we will still be dependent. So for that, we're localizing workforce. As we localize manufacturing, we also localize workforce development. How? We're establishing the African regional capability and capacity network that will be able to use the existing institutions in Africa to localize training. So we have established 4 networks in the African region, in the 4 African regions, North, South, East, West. Some of the members of the network are members of the mRNA program as well. So the idea is to use existing institutions to support them to be able to give the training that we need for workforce development. So these are some of the things that we're doing at the continental level. And tomorrow, by this time, we'll be convening the 55 member states of the African Union to discuss some of the critical factors for success in African manufacturing, not just vaccines, but other health products as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Abebe. And I'm very happy that you talked a lot there about demand, because that is going to be a critical part of this. Jamie, if I could turn to you and ask you about, as a leading figure in civil society, your thoughts on both the mRNA technology transfer program, but also more generally about making sure there's demand, making sure that there's access to products. So, Jamie.
Yeah. Sorry. Well, thank you very much for including me in this event. And the efforts to do technology transfer in developing countries have been one of the areas of a lot of angst, because it's been on the agenda for so many decades. If you go back in the 70s, there was all these conversations at the UN level, partnerships and promises and things like that to sort of have more technology transfer of this type in developing countries, and it's always fallen short. And during the TRIPS agreement, of course, it was part of the sort of soft parts of the agreement. The hard parts went the other direction. You can see it during the discussions on the pandemic treaty, where the technology transfer has been one of the very last things and one of the toughest parts of the negotiations. And so this program, the messenger RNA thing, and the inclusiveness of the support it has among the donors, and the talent it's attracted in terms of the implementers, has really been, I think, a positive example and a hopeful example. And I think it's something that should be built upon. I think in terms of the demand, I think in the beginning the idea was to sort of take a missing manufacturing know-how and really push that. And that was, I think, the right thing to do. Going forward, in the areas where we work, one area we work a lot on is in the area of rare diseases, where the price difference between a generic product and a patent product can be huge. Like we're working on a drug that is $1,000 a day for children, and it's just unavailable in most places. And there has been, in the work on this drug, challenges in terms of getting people to know how to manufacture the drug from a generic point of view. And it doesn't really take. It's certainly the case if you can find a legal way to manufacture it, you're going to find a market for it, because even though the patient numbers in rare disease are small, the impact on the budgets is pretty significant, particularly in some countries where they have legal obligations to extend treatment to these things. It really craters budgets. But one problem we ran into is regulatory. If you have a generic and you want to have it available and accepted by doctors and by patients, you want to have a good quality signal. We had conversations with the European Medicines Agency and regulators in other countries like Australia and the United States, and it's really been challenging to get assistance from some regulatory agencies to provide help in the pre-qualification process for the generic products. So I think if you want to have demand, you're going to have to take seriously the challenges of pre-qualification. It was a big success in the HIV area, and I think it has to be expanded to other areas. And well, I'll stop here. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much, Jamie, and thanks for talking about regulation. And we actually have Dr. Yukiko Nakatani in the audience, who has just been given the job of, well, she already had it, but has now been confirmed in looking after that PQ. So, and clearly I think WHO are making big efforts to try and speed this up to include more things in it and so on. So, Maria, if I could turn to you and ask you similarly what you feel about this mRNA technology transfer program, but also more generally about the importance of local manufacturing. And clearly, Brazil has been really at the forefront in many respects of setting up their own manufacturing. So, Maria, over to you.
So thank you very much. Firstly, merci to the ambassador for hosting us. Thank you very much for the invitation on behalf of Dr. Omar Moreira, our president, who was not able to be here. And so the first thing is, yes, Fiocruz is a huge R&D ecosystem, and then I will speak later more about. But you need lots of different factors to really have a successful program. Yes, and so the first thing, the program really favored the transfer of mRNA technology to Fiocruz. We are already a producer, we are a public foundation, and so we base most part of the immunization program from the Ministry of Health in Brazil, and it's wonderful to have a flexible technology that we are able not only to attend for COVID-19, that was the first vaccine we had developed with first very nice results, but also favors developing for other local diseases which are very important for public health in Brazil. And so at this present time, we have the first GMP facility for mRNA technology from Latin America. And we are also WHO and PAHO partner for transferring technology for COVID-19 vaccines, as well as to empower local production. So we have been making some capacities, and very nice cooperations with different countries, especially for South America and Caribbean. But it's very nicely, we just closed a memorandum of understanding with Africa CDC, and we will work also on that, on this sense. And so it's extremely important as a public health advance, not only for Brazil, but for all our region. And so that's the role we expected to play in terms of global health. So we have some facilities, and I will say the first step is already mentioned, that we have an R&D ecosystem. Otherwise, it's very difficult to really make a sustainable work in this context. And so we are developing since very basic research to final products. So we have to end-to-end solutions which are offered and supported by our Ministry of Health. This, as was also mentioned before, is pivotal because we have a structure which is producing, the Ministry of Health is investing somehow, so we are improving all time because it's used for our population, and surplus also can be offered for WHO, PAHO, and so on, to be used for global health challenges, and especially with this kind of platform. It's extremely important for PPPR, because very fast, as we have seen, we can really release products for our populations and regional ones. But of course, not everything is really a sea of flowers. We have many constraints. The first one is long-term sustainability, as was already approached here. In fact, we must have different models of funding. We cannot depend only on the governments, even because the priorities are changing all the time. So it must be really a pact, I would say. Second, the consortium. So maybe it's not necessary, for example, for us to produce all we need, but Global South, for example, which are the common challenges we have in public health that we can consociate and then make a holistic response. Regulation is also a huge problem, so we need not only regulation, but clinical trials first, which is the minimum protocol required to really have acceptable studies, especially in pandemics or epidemics. It's absolutely critical. Yes, we cannot last year to give a response. And then it's connected also with all regulatory system that must be simplified somehow. And if we have a minimum harmonization between the different regions, we are able to go too much more faster to offer globally different vaccines. And last but not least, I could talk hours and hours here, but because of time, I would like to highlight a very important point. Fake news, yes? We can have vaccines, we can have a wonderful ecosystem, sustainable one, but if the population is not convinced and you don't have trust of population, it's over. All our effort, all our investment. And so I'd like to leave here a question, how to deal with the fake news and misinformation that really makes a population like ours, in Brazil, for example, if you were telling there's a vaccination there, everybody was going. This was in former times, and now we realize a totally different situation that people, you have hesitation for vaccination, and I think this is also, it's outside the forum, but it's something absolutely pivotal to really reach success independent of any kind of technology we're dealing with. So thank you very much.
That is a very good point, Maria. Vaccine hesitancy can undo all of our efforts. One of the things that emerged in COVID was where you had hesitancy amongst the healthcare workers delivering the vaccines, you have real problems. So those are the people who actually need to be your champions. And so I really think it's incumbent on ministries of health to make sure that the frontline workers are really evangelists for vaccines. But that's only part of the answer. It's a very complex question that we all need to tackle. So now we'll move on to into financing, because it's been brought up a number of times. This is critical. So I'm going to start with you, Cécile. The European Commission and in particular INPA, the International Partnerships Directorate General, have been very supportive of the mRNA program. Thank you very much. And if you'd like to talk about some of your ways of financing, particularly innovative financing, different sorts, and maybe with some concrete examples of things that you've done. Cécile, thank you.
Thank you very much, and good evening to everybody. Yes, maybe just to take a step back first, because I think as the EU, we have been very active in supporting manufacturing of local products, especially in sub-Saharan Africa, but we're also now looking more and more in Latin America, and that we've been doing very much as a Team Europe, so also with France, Germany, Netherlands, Belgium, and thanking also French for organizing and hosting today's event. And we've been doing that. It correspond also first to a call from our African partner, but also on our side a shift or a change in a way we are doing development in the EU. We have published a global gateway strategy, which is really at the center of it, innovative financing instrument being a vehicle to deploy really our support as catalytic support and not only like pure ODA, because we see the needs for ODA are huge and simply the public donor do not have enough. So I think this work on manufacturing, which we call MAF Plus in our jargon, is really a core example of this work that we've been really doing with different actors, with our member states and with our African partner, of course. It is today, if we look at all the different programs we have under this umbrella, we have more than 2 billion euro dedicated to this topic. And I would like in particular to reply to your question to mention one particular tool, which is we like to believe innovative, and I do believe it's innovative. It's called Human Development Accelerator. It's a guarantee done together with the Gates Foundation and the EIB. So, of course, we work, when we talk about financing, we work with the EIB, the European Investment Bank. And it's really a dedicated tool of a capacity of 1 billion euro, really aim at supporting investment by the private sector into manufacturing in the world, not only Africa, in the whole world. It is really also coming on top of many other supports we have, because we are aware we don't just need to get the access to finance, it will be too easy. And I think it was mentioned by Martin that it's a very long path to reach the vaccine manufacturing, and until there we all know we need research and development, we need skills and so on. So all this specific guarantee comes also as part of other programs we have to support the long term in terms of skills, research and development and so on. We've been supporting a lot also the institutional buildings, so the AMA creation, our partner Africa CDC, our NEPAD. So this tool really, which provide financing, comes really on top, because this is key to have all the ecosystem for the private sector. And basically we have three possible tools, three possible offer to manufacturer who comes to us and EIB and saying, okay, we need this finance, either corporate loan, venture debt, which is quite an interesting product for many of the manufacturing. This is really much more adapted to their needs, and with a part, of course, of taking the risk on our side and then getting one part which may not be reimbursed if the project does not succeed. And we also have a volume guarantee. So all this is now being deployed in this tool, the guarantee I was talking about. We have a very ambitious time frame of deploying everything in the next 3 years. So now we're looking at all the pipeline and discussing with the different partners to really see what we can cover, how we can make it happen. And I think that's something that we hope will contribute also to this. Of course, it's not always perfect, because we have, as part of this tool, the size of the ticket could be smaller if we see the needs on the market. So we have a ticket size of 10 million in financing. So basically, it is a tool, but we are looking at other tools also also, especially as I was saying, the needs, if we look at all the value chain, I think it was from end to end, we see at different steps, different tools which are needed and different size or in terms of tickets also. And still some things are missing here and there. So we're still looking at other tools that could accompany them, working with key partner, because at the end what we've seen also is that it's a partnership. You need to work with partners in the private sector, in the institutions, in the research academic world, in our partner country. So it's really trying to work with the right partner to have the full palette to support these efforts.
Great, thank you very much indeed, Cécile. And I'm really pleased that you talked about really thinking about ticket size, because that has been a barrier. There's no question that requiring just too much on the ticket size has kept people away from making the most of it. And we know that there is still significant requirements for funding to increase capability and capacity in a lot of regions. I mean, Africa is obviously notably one. During COVID, we gave a license for one of the products to an African company to produce the API, and then we offered them a second license, and they said, it's too complex for us. And so making sure that, in fact, the recipients of technology are actually able to absorb it is critical. The willingness of people to give is a really important part, but the other side of it is equally important. So, Farid, if I could turn to you and ask you too about innovative financing tools that the IFC are using to kind of support this local and regional manufacturing agenda. Farid.
No, thank you, and thanks first of all to the mission for having us here and part of this panel. When we talk about innovative financing, I don't know about the word itself, but it needs to be very specific in what type of financing you leverage. What we've seen on the local manufacturing agenda or the tech transfer like mRNA is that you can have the whole spectrum of going traditional financing. This is what we've done in Africa on, lending to companies like Aspen, for instance, that is a very mature, company that has a balance sheet. And then we had to look at other players like the Institut Pasteur de Dakar, which is probably morphing from a non-profit organization into a more commercial type of local manufacturing agenda. And here we had to look at what type of financing and innovative financing, because traditional financing didn't work. And we leveraged blended finance in the form of a first loss guarantee in a project that, totals more than $200 million. And the way we look at innovative financing is not just unlocking a financing, is also how is it catalytic to bring more commercial and other investor money into the project. And in the case of Institut Pasteur de Dakar, we were able to bring a 45 million commercial tranche thanks to a first loss guarantee that we embedded into the funding plan. But it's a good example because it brought together concessional financing from governments. It brought grants, so philanthropic money, into the mix. And then we said, but there needs to be a commercial test for sustainability of the project. So how do we do that? And we got together, not alone, not the IFC alone, but we had the African Development Bank, the DFC with us, and we basically structured the loan as is. So I think there are when we talk about that space, particularly of biotech, pharma, drugs, manufacturing, there are two elements to it. There is the downstream manufacturing, which is what I described, and there is the whole upstream development and R&D, and that's the most challenging part, for financing. And typically, back to what Cécile was alluding to, while we spent $6 billion over the last 15 years in IFC to do blended finance, traditional, we spent about $3 billion in portfolio in venture capital and disruptive technology investment. And this is a different type of financing. You have to put skin in the game. You have to say, I'm going to put equity or convertible debt into this project. If it fails, we're doomed. You lose your money. If it wins, then there is an upside, and more importantly, you develop. So on tech transfer, mRNA, but there are many other technologies that this is the type of innovative financing that you would need to leverage.
Right. Thank you very much. And now, Cecilia alluded to this, but it's clear that the technology is one thing, but the ecosystem around it, and I think Bebe, you also talked about it, is absolutely critical. And so, Bart, if I could turn to you first, and you're from the WHO Academy, which France has been phenomenally supportive of. Basis is in Lyon. So would you like to talk a bit about the building of an ecosystem and the human infrastructure that's needed and what the Academy is doing?
Thanks. Yes, as Dr. Gennady already said, the workforce is a key component of any biomanufacturing system. And that's because you can have a very strong and robust regulatory system and high-level technology system. You need competent staff to run it and to sustain it. And that's where the WHO Academy really wants to specialize in, to build competences way beyond knowledge, and to create self-reliance and strong health workforces that can really sustainably keep these systems functioning. And this is not the same in any country. It is not a one size fits all. The needs in Senegal are not the same as the ones in Indonesia. And we I'll try to speak a bit louder. And that's why WHO and its academy wants to connect to all the partners to have local pathways, learning pathways that are fit to local realities. And for this also, we collaborate with the Africa CDC, among other partners, to really have our learning pathways adapted while keeping global standards of quality. So WHO Academy is still new. We are only started last December. We built courses of different kinds, online, hybrid, or the full face-to-face in-person courses. I don't know whether anybody can still hear me, but we do not aim to build these courses all by ourselves. We have our own capacity to build the courses, but we connect with many partners globally to create more learning content available. And this is also what we want to do for the biomanufacturing and the mRNA program. We collaborate with the WHO Biomanufacturing Force Training Program, with Africa CDC, but also with the Global Training Hub for Biomanufacturing in the Republic of South Korea. And only this morning, our Director General quoted that 7,000 people have been trained already by that program. So it is what we want to create from competency over time. We want to create country self-reliance and ultimately create a transformation and learning as a force of further health equity and resilience, also for the mRNA program.
Thank you. Thank you, and for your sterling fight against the sound of the rain. So, Minister Budi actually talked about the importance of the pandemic fund. So it's wonderful that you're here, Priya. So if you'd like to talk a bit about some of your work around the infrastructure strengthening.
Thank you very much, and thank you to France, first of all, for hosting, and also for being one of our founding contributors to the Pandemic Fund. It's great to see Minister Budi here, who I always refer to as the father of the Pandemic Fund, since we were launched under the G20 presidency of Indonesia. To see Minister Fala, because South Africa is also a founding contributor. To see Canada, because Canada is also a founding contributor. And of course, the European Union and so many others. And I'm sorry if I'm missing anyone, but we have very many contributors and strong supporters. So, you know, a strong and capable workforce, as has already been said, and the necessary institutional capacity is indeed central to building resilient and sustainable manufacturing ecosystem, and more broadly to a sustainable and resilient health system. So at the Pandemic Fund, you know, we share the goal of the MPP to create a post-COVID world where everyone has equitable, affordable access to the most essential countermeasures, but also very importantly, access to better surveillance systems, to laboratories and diagnostics. And to make all of this work, you need a fit-for-purpose workforce. So that is one of the key focus areas for the Pandemic Fund. And so, for example, when we focus on laboratories and diagnostics, what we're doing is we're also training lab technicians. We're also training frontline workers to be able to use the equipment that's procured and made available. When we talk about frontline workers, we're also training them in getting vaccines into people's arms. We're training community health workers, but we're also training doctors, nurses, field epidemiologists, technicians, veterinarians, animal health workers, because we take a One Health approach to workforce, given the zoonotic origin of most pandemics and the potential for infectious diseases of zoonotic origin to spiral into a pandemic. So with our $885 million of grants that we've awarded so far, we've catalyzed over $6 billion, because we're a catalytic fund, and we have 47 projects across 75 low and middle income countries. And what are these projects doing? As I said, they are very much focusing on building a health workforce, community health workers, increasing disease surveillance capacity and early warning systems, labs, diagnostics. And through all of this, we're actually generating next generation jobs as well. And you know, from Indonesia and Philippines to Bhutan, India, to Burkina Faso, Burundi, to Brazil, to South Africa, we're investing in these kinds of projects. You know, we're also focused very much not just on country-level investments, but also cross-country, because pandemics don't respect borders, as we know. So sort of collaborative surveillance, collaborative information systems, data sharing, but also a workforce, sometimes at a regional level, needs to be developed so that there's a surge capacity then to be able to deploy it in times of crisis. So those are some of the kind of key areas that we're focusing on. And, you know, while what we're doing sort of complements what the medicine patent pool is doing, we believe that there's a common thread that grounds our work and that grounds the work of many of us here in the room in the global public health space, which is that we start by focusing on building capacity at the country level. Country-led, country-owned programs that really have the greatest chances of sustainability. And then, of course, you build capacity at the country level, but then you have to network it up as well to regional and global levels so that, you know, we're ready as a world to be able to tackle the next pandemic. We've mobilized $3 billion already at the Pandemic Fund, thanks to the generous support of so many of you. We catalyze $7 for every dollar that we give and that you give us. So we have a multiplier effect of 1:7. And we look forward to doing much more, to covering many more countries beyond the 75 with great partners like the IFC, the World Bank, the WHO, the Africa CDC. So thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Priya. And indeed, you know, the mRNA program, which started out as trying to make sure that there was vaccine manufacturing capacity that was country-owned, as you rightly said, for COVID, but then COVID faded perhaps more quickly than we expected, and it's turned into something about readiness for the next pandemic, and that is so critically important. So with that, if you would all give another round of applause to our panel. Thank you very much, panel. If you'd like to go back to your seats, I would like to invite Dr. Yukiko Nakatani, who is, where's Yukiko? She had to leave? Fine. Okay. So Deus, who is the, oh, there you are, Deus. Who is the director of, well, I don't know what you're the director of exactly right now, given the changes in WHO, but you're director of some department, to give some closing remarks. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Charles. But of course, I'm not Yukiko Nakatani. And I'm not the Assistant Director General of Health Systems or of access to medicines and health products. Neither I'm not the incoming Assistant Director General of Health Systems, but I'm still the Director of Health Product Policies and Standards, and also Acting Director of Innovations and Emerging Technologies. So, first of all, bring you greetings from Yukiko, who was here at the beginning but had to leave to the Japanese mission for another function. And she has asked me to bring you greetings. Indeed, thank you all for joining today for the thoughtful exchanges you have taken here. We've heard right here from the mRNA model, from innovative financing, but also to capacity building that is necessary for sustainable local production. This has been, of course, a valuable opportunity to reflect on how much our collective efforts are continuing to be stronger, but more resilient and sustainable health systems. Definitely, from the ecosystem that we saw, it's not one aspect that is necessary to make this venture sustainable. We need a proper pipeline from research and development. We need to execute them in actual manufacturing and the infrastructure. But we also need, I think we heard from Abebe, that we need the regulatory systems to make sure that they are being produced to quality, but we also need the market to make sure that they are sustainable. Hence, systems like pooled procurement and the collective regulatory system. Most important, that we need to think anew in terms of how do we finance these systems and how do we sustain them. Sustainability will not only be about financing, but I was glad to see my colleague from the WHO Academy, because human resource, manpower expertise is important to sustain these investments. Now, the mRNA technology transfer program represents a practical example on what can be achieved when countries, institutions, and partners collaborate around a common goal. This would not have been possible without that collaboration. And It demonstrates the potential of building local manufacturing capacity, not only for current technologies, but also for platforms that can adapt for future public health needs. You've heard from the presentation from my colleague, Martin Frieda. Yes, COVID maybe is gone, but we know one of the most versatile and resilient technologies is mRNA technology. With the mRNA technology, we were able to respond to an ever-evolving variants of COVID. And therefore, this is a platform that we feel that will be able to help us in responding to future pandemics and outbreaks. Therefore, you've heard Martin say that by the year, I think 2030, 8 facilities geographically spread around the world will have the capacity to execute at GMP level, that's at commercial level, mRNA technologies. This is an important fundamental capacity, and the fact that these will be mostly in low and medium income countries is another important step towards contributing towards equity and sustainability. So if we continue this work, we must maintain our focus on long-term sustainability and shared responsibility. Strengthening regional production capacity requires steady investment and infrastructure, regulatory systems, skills development, and innovation. I am very glad to have seen the various colleagues from IFC, from the pandemic, I think it was the pandemic fund, and other financing mechanisms to bring resources to this area so that we can sustain these investments. WHO remains committed to supporting this work in close cooperation with all of you. I know restructuring is going on. A number of people, because mRNA technology and health technology access program are under my department, and people have been saying, will the prioritization take it away? Let me say thanks to all of you that this remains a high priority for WHO, and it will not go away. And also thanks to MPP for your continued collaboration in this area. So it also requires careful planning, alignment with countries' own priorities. Our colleagues from South Africa, thanks for nurturing this baby and giving it the priority. You had a list from Martin Frieda. We are not looking only at COVID vaccines. We have an array, a list of products that were suggested by the regions that meet the core needs of the countries. And this is also an important aspect of sustainability, producing products that meet the current needs and the urgent needs of the countries. So, as I said, WHO remains committed to supporting this work in close cooperation with all of you. We see mRNA platform and more broadly the health technology access program as part of the larger vision, one that promotes equitable access, supports health security, and helps ensure that no region is left behind. I would like to thank all of our partners, especially the honorable ministers that were here, because your countries gave a platform, gave an anchor to this baby that we are celebrating today. That is not only now suckling, but it has actually nurtured 14 other babies out there that are also starting to move. So thank you for your support, and thank you for investing in equity, investing in capacity building, investing in resilience. So your leadership is instrumental in making progress possible, and therefore we look forward to continuing this important work and working together to sustain it. I thank you very much. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, Deus, and just like to echo that point before I hand over to Claire, another of our hostesses this evening. But just before I do, I just want to echo this idea of this is all about partnerships and working together. And I know that the minister from Wallonia is here in the audience, so also offering to come and support this whole local manufacturing effort. And also I see Richard Hatchett there from CEPI, again, another key partner in this entire endeavor, because some of the mRNA technology transfer partners are also being supported by CEPI, as now is Afrigen. So thank you very much for that. And with that, Claire, if I could just hand over to you.
Bonsoir à tous. Je crois qu'il me revient le mot le plus facile de la soirée et celui que vous attendez tous maintenant. D'abord, un grand merci à tous nos panélistes pour ce débat absolument passionnant. Merci à MPP pour ce partenariat que nous sommes très fiers d'avoir avec vous. Bravo pour la qualité des échanges et merci beaucoup à l'Organisation mondiale de la santé d'être notre partenaire, parce que je crois que les messages de conclusion l'ont dit, nous sommes ensemble avec une grande ambition pour l'avenir, une ambition pour une meilleure coopération, pour de l'action, pour de la réponse aux crises et pour une santé mondiale toujours plus ambitieuse. Je vous remercie et surtout je vous invite à rejoindre la réception qui continue à l'abri de la pluie dans la tente suivante. Bonne soirée.